It's been a little while since we've done one of these Q&As, so let's just jump straight into this one. I think there's a fair few questions, so this might be a bit of a longer video, but let's get stuck into it. This question is actually a funny one. Boris says, Ivan, thoughts on semen retention? I remember like 2 years ago, this was like a popular thing amongst forums and amongst people. There was a lot of videos going around about people talking about semen retention. To me, man, like, it does not make sense to me. On one hand, we talk about testosterone production. We talk about how important it is to have high testosterone for a male, mental health, physical health, all that stuff. You know, testosterone is like a big component of a man's health. And on the very kind of flip side of that conversation, we're talking about semen retention, which makes no sense to me. You know, people talk about how they improve their mood, they're more confident in social settings, all these kind of like mental effects as a result of semen retention. To me, it makes no sense. If you have a male that is, let's say, fit, healthy, training, high, you know, testosterone count, the intuitive response there would be that that person would have, you know, high semen production, right? And then to basically put a lid on it and, you know, retain it absolutely makes no sense to me. I said to somebody on Instagram once, they asked me about this very thing. They were asking about it. To me, it makes no sense. If you were to block any other gland in your body, it would swell, it would get infected. Glands are like pores, they need to breathe. And so if your body's producing this stuff, it needs to come out, man. It's like urine, it's like feces. You know, why don't you do a, you know, fecal retention? Why don't you do urine retention? It makes no sense, man. So I think it's a secretion that needs to come out. You know, depending on your life and circumstances and whatever. To me, also, what I don't understand is, you know, semen retention. Like, okay, so what if you have a partner? What if you are in a relationship? Like, what does that even mean? So to me, it never made sense. I say no. If you're single, you know, in a relationship, I don't think it's healthy to basically forget about an organ. This organ is secreting. This organ is producing. It needs to come out. Otherwise, you're going to, I don't know, in a negative feedback mechanism, turn off some of these structures that are producing because you have no need. And then I wonder, I mean, this is just me talking out loud, thinking out loud, I wonder if that has a negative feedback on your testosterone count. I don't know. But I don't think you should just completely ignore the function of an organ. AP the Legend says, Ivan, hope all is well. Question. I'm sure there is individuals that would assume you squat every day journeys a coping mechanism to potential issues surrounding your life. Not saying this about yourself, but I have taken these exact critiques from people in my circle, not necessarily with daily training, but taking my training and nutrition extremely seriously. Do you believe in the notion of using exercise as a coping mechanism? And I wonder if anyone has placed that comment on yourself at some point. Yeah, definitely, man. A lot of people have messaged me. Some people have actually made comments like, who hurt this man? You know, who hurt him? To me, it's like, what's the alternative? Okay, so I am using this as a coping mechanism. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, I have a lot of stress in my life, and I use this as an outlet. In my eyes, it's like, okay, that's good, because that stress has to come out somehow. Should I drink? Should I do drugs? Should I start smoking? What else do people do to kind of cope with life? There's many other things people do. I squat, you know, I train. And that to me is a very healthy method of dealing with life. To say that is what I do and that's my motivation to kind of deal with some of my past traumas, that's the main driver, I don't think so. I genuinely have a positive look at squatting every day, training every day. It's not so much as a repercussion of some of the stresses that I have in my life. I think the stress relief nature of the squat every day is kind of like a side effect to all of this. All I know, I can honestly say to you, if I didn't have this much training in my life, I think I wouldn't be as pleasant of a person, as calm of a person to be around with. I'm just so calm, man. Like I'm always physically at peace. Like I don't rage. I don't know. I just feel like I'm calm because I have this physical exertion on a daily basis, and I'm less reactive. So people have assumed that that's what's happening, and it's probably a pretty safe critique of somebody to make in terms of like, okay, this guy's training so much, like he has to be coming from pain. It's not coming from pain. It's more so coming from the fact that I love something. I love to do something. I'm an extremist in the sense. I want to do it all the time. And I think we live very, very lazy lives for the most part. And I think this is a great way to kind of mimic some of our ancestors back in the day who, used to, do manual labor every single day, and what do? We just drive to work and back. So I'm always kind of thinking about those types of things as well on top of everything, but I don't think it's a stress reliever. I don't think that's my primary thought. If people are telling you that, then whatever, like maybe that's their assessment of you, but internally what drives you, internally why you do it. Other people's opinion doesn't really matter. I'm not really that sensitive to other people's opinions, to be honest with you. Other than my wife, my kids, and the kind of initial circle, I don't know. Like I'll listen to your critique, your assessment of me, but then after that, man, if I don't agree with it, if I don't think it's right, whatever, it just kind of leaves me. Juan Garcia says, also have a quick question. Anyone can answer, but I was watching Seeker Strength and they mentioned coaxial activation, basically the importance of equal push and pull strength in our case of strength and conditioning. I was just wondering how to test for imbalances. I've noticed when doing lunges or Bulgarian split squats that I just can't do much weight. It's awkward as hell. Is that a sign of weak glute or hamstring? To be honest with you, I've never heard of this coaxial activation business. So I don't know what that is. So I'm not going to kind of comment too much about that because I don't know what it is. But in terms of assessing for weaknesses, this is something that I've kind of been doing in recent times, looking for weaknesses and trying to iron them out. And then going back to the original movement that I want to be good at and see the effects if they carry over. How do you assess for weaknesses? We just, do a stance, do something that exposes that muscle. And if you're weak at it, it's probably a weakness. That's how I've looked at it. What's the difference between narrow stance and wide stance squats? Okay, let's list some of the structures which are associated with that stance. Okay, these are the structures that are weak if I cannot produce the same amount of force in a wide compared to a narrow. That's kind of how I look at it. You can get really cute with these things and try and work out exactly which freaking fiber, which muscle. But to me, it's almost like which planes of motion are you good at? Find something that you're not good at and do it. That's kind of how I look at it. You have people that are really, really strong on bench press, kind of like in this position, and then really weak here. Then you have the opposite as well. So I'm really comfortable here and really, really kind of like uncomfortable here. So it makes sense that maybe my pecs are weak, and the person that's weak here, maybe their triceps are weak. That's kind of how I look at it. In terms of the weighing of push and pull, I don't know much about that. Sonny Boy the Forgetful says, hey Van, your thoughts on Lu Jianyun losing a lot of muscle? Man, when I saw that, I could not believe what I was seeing, man. My initial thoughts were, man, he looks unwell, like he looks sick. I kind of had concerns initially, because I saw a video where he was like failing 170 kilo squat. That's crazy, man. Like I've seen that dude squat damn near 300 kilos. So, and he's like a 75, 80 kilo lifter or something like that. I think in that video where he fell 170, he looked freaking 70 or 65 kilos. He looked really, really small. I don't know. A lot of people have said that he's off cycle now. He's off the juice, and that's why he's that shape and that that level of strength. I'm not sure. We don't really know the background. I'll tell you, man, for many, many years, I thought all these guys were natural. I'm talking like 10 years ago, when I didn't know much about any of this stuff. I came from basketball. I was kind of looking into all these things, and I would see Ronnie Coleman, okay, that's clearly steroids. And then you see Lou, you're like, well, he looks small. He looks muscular, but looks much, much smaller than that guy, so maybe he's natural. I think all these guys are on something, man. So maybe he just went off cycle to get healthy, and then he'll come back and we'll see whatever. You'll see he's going to put on a lot of muscle mass. My understanding is he's going to try and come back into the Chinese weightlifting team and try to go to the next competition, worlds or whatever he's preparing for. But absolutely unbelievable to see how much weight he's lost. And strength as well, man. He looks like he's a shadow of himself. Pad says, hey, what are your thoughts on elders, old people? Sometimes I feel society could do a lot better for old people, and they don't get the respect they deserve. I have lived with my grandparents for my early adult life, and it was one of the best things that could have happened to me. And for them, I think, yeah, man, I work in nursing, man. I spend a lot of time with elderly people. And I agree with you. I think a lot of elders are not respected by the youth. The youth kind of assumes that they're out of date and they have nothing to offer. But if you understand that history repeats itself in many kind of circumstances, you will then realize the importance of elders and what they have to offer. They have lived basically many more years, many more experiences than we have. And I think sitting there and listening to them talk about whatever the hell they want to talk about. I know a lot of people have their way of talking. Sometimes you kind of have to put up with the noise, if you will, the repetitive nature of their storytelling. But I think there's a lot of gems to be learned there. And if you find somebody that's of healthy mind, and they're like in the 80s and 90s, there's a lot of benefits to be drawn from elderly. I believe that, and this is one of the reasons why I love my job. Occasionally you kind of sit down with somebody and they tell you how it was to live in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, or whatever, whatever the group. I remember a few months ago I met a 104-year-old man, 103-year-old man at the hospital. Triaged him. Big, tall dude, man. He used to be a ruckman here at one of the local footy teams. Big, tall dude, really healthy looking guy. Spoke well, sharp, like amazing to see. If I had the time, I would love to talk to him a bit more about, various different things. But a lot of the times at my work, I don't have the time because of the nature of the job and whatever. But definitely, if you've got access to old people and your grandparents are still around, man, use that opportunity before, because one day you won't have that opportunity anymore. Pat also says, I was wondering if you could expand some time on this idea of training by yourself. I've been training with a coach now for 2 years, but we'll be transitioning to solo sessions from here on out, probably for the rest of my life. I know it was going to come eventually, but that's something I have just been thinking about lately. Man, my initial exposure to training was by myself. Even with basketball, like, you take the ball and shoot it, and you spend some time with the ball and the hoop, and then eventually you gather a crowd, and then you play basketball for a team and whatever. So I don't know, I really like being alone, training alone. I really, really like that. You're kind of in your own element. There's no outside, not to say noise, but there's no noise is a harsh word. There's no outside stimuli, so you can kind of focus all of your energies on what you're doing, how you're feeling, what muscles are activated. So I really kind of enjoy that introspective kind of like existence. But if you're in a gym, if you've got somebody around you, you're concerned about what they're saying to you and where they are, what they're doing. So it just kind of takes away from that, that feeling of existing by yourself in training. I love that about it. So I reckon that's the key kind of component of training by yourself, that kind of almost meditative state. Destroyer of toilets, what a name. Hey Van, now that you've been implementing super heavy squats, do you ever get bruised or sore from the bar digging into your tissue? I'm only able to squat once or twice a week because my traps are so tender and beat up from the weight that I need to recover from it. No, never, man. Eventually you will kind of develop like a position across your back where it's just so comfortable, man. Like there's nothing, like it's just, I don't know. There's a spot there where it just kind of feels good. I never have any pain or calluses. Sometimes I get a callus on the bone at the back of my C7. Is that a C7? Probably a C7 vertebra. Sometimes if the bar kind of rolls forward, but I haven't had that in a little while now. But that's about it. Like there's no pain, there's nothing associated with it. Philippe Carfen says, my friend is a surgeon. He told me he removed a piece of hardened fatty tissue from someone who used to squat regularly over 400 pounds. He used it. He said it was so hard his scalpel could barely cut through it. Wow. Wonder what they were doing. Richie C33. Hey Van, I'm sure I remember you saying at some point that you don't drink caffeine, possibly in a previous Q&A. Sorry if this is a repeat question. All good, man. I just wonder if you could expand on your reasoning behind that and any benefits you've noticed. Oh man, I've had coffee here and there, but I reckon I haven't had a cup of coffee in the last, probably easily 1 year, easily. Initially, my stance was, associated around, I want to drink coffee only when I get in trouble, like if I'm doing a night shift and I start to get really kind of tired and the night's kind of dragging on, whatever. So I'll kind of have a coffee there. That was kind of my initial thinking. But then eventually I kind of realized that I can just push through anyway, have some chips or have a cookie or a lolly or something instead. Caffeine, when I read that Matt Perryman book, Squat Every Day, he basically kind of like described really well the importance of not getting your mood elevated. The importance of not using stimulants in your training, because that aspect of us, of our existence, takes more points from our recovery than the actual training. So getting your emotional level, higher, getting your mood elevated, artificially, music, salts, caffeine or whatever, that has a more dramatic effect on our recovery than the actual training. So the emotional response, the psychological response is what actually tires us out. So then I kind of read that and understood that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to train calm, I'm going to stay away from stimulants, and I'll go from there. And since then, I've never looked back, because I always think about recovery. The thing with caffeine, man, you need to understand is that it wakes you up, it makes you more alert, regardless of how your body's feeling. So you could be dead tired, overdose on caffeine, all of a sudden you're kind of more alert. I don't think that's a really good idea. I think you should be really assessing how you feel, how you truly feel. You shouldn't be masking those emotions, those feedback mechanisms with, substances, especially if you're squatting every day, especially if you're exerting yourself every day, because the training itself is a fatigue kind of maker every single day. And then if you start throwing in stimulants, then you have like these longer arching things on the graph, which makes the graph even more busier. It's not so much like Monday to Sunday, training kind of fatigue management. Then you have these stimulants, and that's another thing you have to weigh up. Okay, how many milligrams did I take today? How many? It gets awfully difficult. If you're like me on night duty, day duty, all the time, flipping around, the last thing I need to kind of start thinking about also is the half-life of caffeine. I don't want to be dealing with that. That's too much to think about. And so I just go raw in terms of that as well. I don't take anything. Sam Krug says, Yo Ivan, has anyone made fan art of you yet? I don't think so, man. I think a few people have messaged me with like, what do you call them, like memes, some funny stuff, but maybe that's what you mean, fan art. I've never seen any kind of fan art as such about me. Where are we? Whoa, lost it. Richie C33 says, Hey Vine, I'm sure you, I'm sure I remember you saying at some point that you don't, oh, that was that one. Brendan PJ says, after watching today's video, I was wondering if you ever considered giving some insight into how you structure your training log. I'm curious as how you go about logging the workout itself, the type of insight you leave for your future self to ponder regarding how you're feeling. Man, I wish I could show you like a snippet of my training log, but basically I would show you, man, but I usually put stuff there like personal stuff, how I feel, you know, what's going on in my life, what shift I'm on and whatever, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's just nothing, it's just a flat line. So if you have a line of the training, let's say just A4 piece of paper, whatever, you have a line. So start the line by writing the date. So the first, you know, a little bit is the date. Then I write the squat every day number, so like 1036, whatever it is, and then I make a line, and then I put whatever the first exercise is. So back squat, right back squat, 2 dots, and then I go bar times 10, 60 times 10, 100 times 5, 140, blah blah blah, all the way then. So I write every single rep, every single set, and then after that I go through all of the next line will be next exercise. And usually it's every day is like 4, 5, maybe 4 lines, 5 lines, sometimes 6, depending on how many freaking exercises I do, how much work I do. And then after that, I'll kind of leave a bit of a space. And if I have something on my mind, I would write a bit of like 2 or 3 lines, 4 lines about what's going on. Top of every page or top of every day, top right, I'll put like my shift, if I work the shift. And that's all I really do. Sometimes I will get kind of stimulated and I will basically write a whole freaking paragraph about some of the thoughts. And then, or the header of every page, not always, but sometimes I put like recurrent themes. Like if I believe Hindu squats are the main theme of the current training, I would put Hindu squats. And sometimes Hindu squats or whatever the theme is will go 3 or 4 pages in a row. So maybe like a month worth of work in a row. So when you're like flicking through the journal, you can just kind of focus on the headers to see what the flavor of my mind was. Okay, so we go pin squats here, pin squats here, pin squats here, deadlift every day, deadlift every day, deadlift every day, lots of abs, or something will come up like hip pain solved, question mark, proximal hamstring tendinopathy, question mark, or something like that. That's something that draws my attention to what the theme of the page is. It kind of makes it easier when you're flicking through what the current thinking was. It just kind of makes it easier to review at the end of the day. All right, guys, so it wasn't too long, 23 minutes, not too bad. Hopefully I can do this weekly. Last few weeks have kind of been busy as hell. But hopefully I can do one of these again next week and not skip a few weeks in a row. Appreciate you guys. Catch you in the next one.